So in response to the second Trump assassination attempt, the mainstream media, the anti-gun groups, and liberal members of Congress have now moved to completely blaming the guns instead of the individual, and they're pushing for more gun control nationwide. So let's break down what they are doing. Now, really quick before we jump into this video, I want to ask you all for a huge favor. Looking at some of my analytics, about 60% of all my viewers are actually not subscribed to the channel. I get comments every single day also from people saying that they've been unsubscribed. So if you want to support the channel for free, please consider subscribing to the channel, and then also just double check to make sure YouTube has not unsubscribed you. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, in this video, we have to talk about what is now going on as far as pushing for nationwide gun control in response to the second Trump assassination. We all knew that the liberals and the anti-gun groups would try to use this incident, like they always do, to push for more gun control, and that's exactly what is happening. And they're doing that instead of focusing on the individual involved in the incident. So they're trying to blame the gun once again instead of the individual. Now, I want to bring to your guys' attention an article that was put up by MSNBC. It's essentially a breakdown of their perspective on who is actually to blame when it comes to the second attempt. And essentially they say that in the headline that the Secret Service did not fail Trump on Sunday. America's gun control did. So the whole premise of this article that is now being run by MSNBC and also some other articles that are popping up on other left-leaning mainstream media, pundits and articles and websites. Essentially, again, they are focusing on the gun in America's gun culture and calling for more gun control instead of focusing on the individual and what led to this incident, including their insane rhetoric that, again, they're pushing in these articles. And in these articles, they push for two main things. First, they push for a nationwide ban on so-called assault weapons. So they want a national ban on various rifles, or some of the most common rifles that are owned in the millions by law-abiding people. They call for a second national ban on these types of items. And then also they call for increase of funding for the ATF, increase of agents for the ATF. So they want to double the size of the ATF so that we can have more, executive agency overreach when it comes to firearms. So the article states that on Sunday, Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump had to be whisked away while members of his Secret Service detail fired upon an apparent would-be assassin who they had spotted pointing an assault-style rifle toward the golf course Trump was on. The article goes on to say that it's time to ask whether we are okay with ignoring the root cause of this lunacy. I, for one, am not. So the whole article is premised on saying that guns are the root cause and the root issue of what is going on as far as these assassination attempts. And again, they're glazing over all the other things that have led to this incident. They go on to say that the Secret Service has acknowledged that they had some internal lapses and some internal issues, but then the article goes on to shift the blame. They say, well, it's not really the Secret Service and their protection issues that are essentially to blame, but instead, we should focus on the fact that guns are so widely available, that people have guns in America, and that's the true problem. They state that yet despite all their obvious mistakes that day, we've essentially dumped a now virtually impossible task on the lap of federal agents and told them to figure it out. That task is to guard the lives of their protectees in outdoor settings, including in the 31 states that allow citizens to walk around displaying a gun in a nation with over 20 million assault-style rifles, which defies logic according to them. And they state that something must be changed. Again, saying that there's all these so-called assault-style rifles. There are states with open carry, potentially concealed carry as well, constitutional carry, and that causes an even greater issue. And interestingly, even in this article, they acknowledge that the person involved in the second attempt potentially was a prohibited person, and they're running on a narrative where they don't even have the true facts yet. They say that potentially this person should not have had possession of a firearm. You don't have all the information yet. This individual potentially already had an issue with possessing a fully automatic machine gun in violation of potentially the GCA and NFA, already had contact with law enforcement prior, potentially shouldn't have had possession of this rifle that he had, but ignore all of that. It's still the guns to blame. Don't focus on the laws that were already broken, how criminals will do criminal things regardless of the laws. No, we need more gun control because gun control can solve this issue. So they acknowledge that there is no clear information and potentially this guy was already violating federal laws, but then they go on to advocate for even more laws. They state that, and there are things we can do to focus on the root causes, guns and mental health. And then here is their proposal for national gun control. The first one being doubling the size and the budget of the ATF. They state that the ATF is woefully understaffed and barely able to do what they are required to do and what they're being asked to do as far as stopping stolen guns, arresting people who are unlawfully manufacturing weapons and parts kits. And they say that things like ghost guns and fully automatic weapons, that the ATF is just understaffed and they cannot stop the flow of all these weapons. They state that the ATF is supposed to do that across the country and also across the globe with less than 3,000 agents in a recent $50 million slash in their budget. So I would say a lot of the things that the ATF do, they do a lot as far as overreach, and they always frame it as far as the ATF is always doing lawful activities. They go after lawful gun owners. They focus on items like FRTs. They went after bump stocks. They go after unfinished frames and receivers, or so-called ghost guns. They went after pistol braces, and they do all of these things. They tried to infringe on our Second Amendment rights, and every time they're reviewed by courts, including the Supreme Court, these actions by the ATF are struck down. And so here you have MSNBC calling for more ATF overreach, but we've already seen multiple times that ATF overreach that they're calling for has been struck down as unconstitutional. Now, the second thing they call for is a little bit interesting. Essentially, they're calling for the delegation of Secret Service powers to other agencies. What they call for is more freedom for the Secret Service to do more protection and more law enforcement activities. Maybe delegate some of the other activity to other agencies like the FBI, the Department of Treasury, and other, executive agencies. So that's very interesting. Now, the third thing they call for, which is the big one, is that they say we need to significantly reduce the number of assault-style rifles in this country. And here is the call from the mainstream media and also the gun control groups that are cited in this article, like Everytown, where they are calling for a new ban on assault weapons nationwide. They want a rifle ban and a new federal law. They state that research shows that not only are these weapons preferred by mass shooters, but past federal bans on such weapons actually worked to reduce mass shootings. And here is where, of course, MSNBC and the anti-gun groups go and make the blatant lie once again that the prior federal ban on these types of rifles actually reduced crime. And we all know that is not true. Actually, according to the FBI, no crime was reduced at all with the first ban on rifles nationwide. But even if it did reduce crime, you are talking about violating the Second Amendment and banning one of the most common types of firearms that is used for lawful purposes nationwide, which we all know is a violation of the Second Amendment and does not align with Supreme Court precedent. So here you have MSNBC in Everytown calling for a national ban on rifles once again in response to the second shooting. So this is a narrative that I said was going to be spun up more and more as the coming days, evolved and more information came out. And that's exactly what's happening. Now we are seeing more mainstream articles and the anti-gun groups jumping on a call for a national ban on rifles. And then the article goes on to attacking and blaming Donald Trump for this incident. They say that he's pretty much to fault because of his speech recently at the NRA convention, saying that he would not lay a finger on any firearms, and saying that he would do nothing as far as gun control. They go on to blame him and saying, well, he didn't want to do any national gun control, and it's his fault for these assassination attempts and for not banning assault weapons and not banning these rifles that are now being used against him. And then at the very end, they call for voting in Kamala Harris and Tim Walz because they would be happy to lead the way as far as bans on rifles and all this other type of gun control that they're proposing, which is very interesting because we are just coming off of the presidential debate where Kamala Harris was saying that I am not going to ban any firearms, and she got angry at Donald Trump for making that statement, saying that no, she's not going to infringe on the Second Amendment, she's not going to touch anybody's guns, stop telling that lie. But then just a week later, after a second assassination attempt on Donald Trump, now you have the mainstream media saying, oh, in fact, she's going to do exactly what we all said she was going to do, which is she is going to try to infringe on the Second Amendment. So just very interesting, the narrative that is now being spun up because of this second assassination attempt. They're calling for doubling the size and the budget of the ATF. and also, once again, a national ban on rifles. So I wanted to bring this to your guys' attention because it's very interesting to see how this narrative has spun up after this incident. Of course, we will be watching this closely to see how this develops, and I would anticipate that we're going to see some sort of bill be pushed soon. So if anything like that happens, I will let you guys know. Also, if you like this video and you would like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm, and it signals to YouTube that you guys see value in these videos and in this type of two-way news. But as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and never forget this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.